It was a freezing Tuesday morning in December, the kind of cold that bites your face the second you step outside. At LaGuardia Airport, chaos was the name of the game. Flights were delayed. People were grumpy. Coffee lines stretched a mile long. And in the middle of all that noise stood Amelia Roth. She was the CEO of Look Style, a fashion empire worth $9 billion. To the outside world, she had the perfect life. A corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. A penthouse in Manhattan. A car service that took her everywhere. But here's the thing nobody tells you about being a billionaire. It's lonely. Really lonely. Amelia hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 3 years. She was running on caffeine and pure stubbornness. Her marriage had fallen apart 6 months earlier. Her ex-husband took the dog, the beach house, and most of her friends. All she had left was the company. So she threw herself into it completely. Meetings back to back. Red-eye flights. Dinner at her desk. She told herself she was fine. But deep down, she was running on empty. That morning, her private jet had a mechanical issue. Some parts she didn't care to understand. So for the first time in years, she had to fly commercial. First class, obviously, but still, commercial. Walked onto the plane with her, noise-canceling headphones, her silk eye mask, and a scowl that could melt glass. She found her seat. Window seat, row 3. Perfect. She sat down, buckled up, and immediately closed her eyes. Do not talk to me. Do not look at me. Do not breathe in my direction. But life has a funny way of ignoring your plans. A few minutes before takeoff, a man sat down in the seat next to her. She didn't look at him at first. She just felt the shift in weight. Then she heard a tiny voice. A little boy, maybe 2 or 3 years old, saying, "Daddy, I want my bear." The man whispered back, "I know, buddy. We'll find him when we land." His voice was calm, gentle, tired, but warm. Amelia peeked through one eye. The guy looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Dark circles under his eyes. Wrinkled shirt. Jeans with a small stain on the knee. His hair was messy, like he'd run his hands through it 100 times that morning. And on his lap sat a little boy with messy brown hair and a runny nose. The dad's name was Mark. Amelia didn't know that yet. All she knew was that she did not want to sit next to a toddler for 2 hours. She put her headphones on, turned up her white noise track, and leaned her head against the window. Goodbye, world. The plane took off. The engine hummed. The little boy squirmed a bit, but his dad kept him calm. He pulled out a cracked iPad and put on some cartoon about a talking puppy. The boy watched quietly. Amelia almost relaxed. Almost. About an hour into the flight, something happened. Amelia fell asleep. Not just a little doze. We're talking full-on, mouth slightly open. Drool on her chin, dead to the world. Her body had finally given up. 3 years of no sleep caught up with her at 35,000 feet. And because planes are bumpy and seats are narrow, her head slowly tilted. Away from the window. Toward the man next to her. Toward Mark. She didn't feel it happen. But her head landed right on his shoulder. And she stayed there. For 20 whole minutes. Now most people would have woken her up. Pushed her away. Made it awkward. But Mark didn't. You want to know why? Because he was a single dad. And single dads know something that most CEOs don't. They know that sometimes people just need a place to rest. Mark had been a single dad for 14 months. His wife, Sarah, had passed away after a sudden illness. One day she was there, making pancakes, singing off-key in the shower. The next day she was gone. And Mark was left with a 2-year-old who didn't understand why. Mommy wasn't coming home. He had sold their house, moved into a small apartment, and taken a job that paid half of what he used to make. Why? Because it had daycare on site. That's the kind of sacrifice single parents make every single day. So when a tired, stressed-out woman fell asleep on his shoulder, Mark didn't move. He didn't nudge her. He didn't clear his throat. He just sat there, holding his son with one arm, letting a stranger rest on the other. His son, Leo, looked up at him with big, curious eyes. Mark put a finger to his lips. "She," he whispered. "The lady is tired." Leo nodded like he understood. Then he went back to watching his cartoon. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The flight attendant came by with drinks. Mark shook his head quietly so she wouldn't wake Amelia. He didn't order anything. He didn't want to risk moving his shoulder. His arms started to go numb. But still, he didn't move. You see, Mark wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just being a human. And in a world where everyone is in a hurry, where everyone is staring at their phone, where everyone is too busy to notice the person right next to them, that kind of simple kindness, it's rare, and it's powerful. Finally, the pilot came on the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Chicago. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." That's when Amelia woke up. She opened her eyes slowly, blinked, realized her head was on something warm, something that smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. She looked up, and there was Mark smiling at her. Not a creepy smile, not an awkward smile, just a gentle, tired, kind smile, like he'd been waiting for her to wake up so he could say, "Hey, you okay?" Amelia shot up like she'd been electrocuted. Her face turned bright red. "Oh my God," she said. "I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. I can't believe I—" Mark just laughed. A quiet, easy laugh. "Don't worry about it," he said. "You looked like you needed it." Amelia didn't know what to say. She was a billionaire. She was in control of everything. She had people whose entire job was to open doors for her. And now, she had just drooled on a stranger's shirt. A stranger who was being way too nice about it. She fumbled for her phone, checked her messages. 43 unread emails. 12 missed calls from her assistant. A text from her board member saying, "We need to talk about Q3 numbers." Her heart started racing. The old familiar anxiety crept back in. She was Amelia Roth, the shark, the boss, the woman who ate other CEOs for breakfast. She didn't have time to feel embarrassed. She didn't have time to feel anything. But then Leo tugged on her sleeve. "Lady," he said. "You forgot your bear." Amelia looked down. Leo was holding out a small, beat-up teddy bear. The fur was rubbed off in some places. One eye was missing. It was the saddest little bear she had ever seen. And Leo was offering it to her because he thought she needed it more than he did. That's when something cracked inside Amelia. Something she didn't even know was there. A wall she had built so high and so thick that she forgot she was the one who built it. And in that moment, sitting on a crowded plane with a tired dad and a generous toddler, that wall started to crumble. She looked at Mark, really looked at him. Not as a stranger, not as a nuisance, but as a person. A person who had let her sleep on his shoulder for half an hour. A person who didn't ask for anything in return. A person who is probably going through something way harder than a missed quarterly earnings report. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was quiet, different, softer than she meant it to be. Mark nodded. "No problem. Seriously." The plane landed. Everyone started unbuckling, grabbing bags, standing up. The usual airport chaos. Mark stood up, hoisted Leo onto his hip, and reached into the overhead bin for a worn-out backpack. That was it. No fancy luggage. No garment bag. Just one small backpack for him and his son. Amelia watched him walk down the aisle. She wanted to say something else. She didn't know what. She just felt like she couldn't let him disappear into the crowd. Not yet. But before she could open her mouth, Mark turned around. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded napkin, and handed it to her. "Here," he said. "I wrote something for you while you were sleeping." Then he smiled one more time, turned, and walked away. Amelia stood there in the middle of the aisle, holding a napkin. People pushed past her. Someone muttered, "Excuse me." She didn't care. She unfolded the napkin, and this is what it said. I want you to read these words carefully, because they are the reason I'm telling you this story. The note said, "Whoever you are, I hope you find what you're looking for. You work too hard. I can see it in your face. Please remember to rest. And don't be so hard on yourself. The world needs more of you. Not the CEO, just you." Amelia read it once, then twice, then a third time, and then, standing in the aisle of a commercial airplane at Chicago O'Hare, surrounded by strangers who had no idea who she was, Amelia Roth started to cry. Not the pretty cry, the ugly cry. The kind where your face scrunches up and your nose runs and you can't breathe. Because in that moment, she realized something devastating. Nobody had asked her if she was okay in years. Nobody had told her to rest. Nobody had said, "Hey, you're enough, just as you are." Not because of your money or your title, just because you exist. She had spent so long trying to be the perfect CEO that she forgot how to be a person. And a stranger on a plane, a single dad with a stained shirt and a missing teddy bear, saw right through her. He saw the exhaustion, the loneliness, the weight she'd been carrying, and instead of judging her, he gave her a place to rest. But here's where the story gets even crazier, because this isn't just a story about a nice napkin note. This is a story about what happened next. Amelia ran off the plane. She didn't care about her luggage. She didn't care about her car service. She ran through the terminal, past the food court, past the security checkpoint, looking for Mark. She had to find him. She had to thank him. She had to tell him that his note meant more than any business deal, any award, any zero on her bank account. She searched for 20 minutes. Nothing. He was gone. She went home that night and she couldn't sleep. Not because she was working, but because she kept thinking about that little boy. That worn-out bear. That dad who didn't move his shoulder even when it went numb. The next morning, she did something she hadn't done in years. She canceled all her meetings. She turned off her phone, and she sat in her apartment alone and just thought. She thought about Mark's words. Don't be so hard on yourself. She thought about the way Leo offered her his bear. She thought about the fact that a man who had nothing gave her more than anyone with everything ever had. 3 days later, she found him. Now I know what you're thinking. How did she find him? Did she hire a private investigator? Did she track his flight number? Did she use her billionaire resources to hunt him down? No, she did something much simpler. She posted on social media a single sentence. To the man on flight 407 from New York to Chicago, who let me sleep on his shoulder and gave me a napkin note, I need to find you. Within 6 hours, the post had been shared 50,000 times. People love a good mystery. And by the next morning, someone had tagged Mark, his cousin actually, who saw the post and said, "Hey, Isn't that your brother? Mark didn't have a smartphone. He didn't have social media. He had a flip phone that cost $20. So his cousin called him. And Mark, confused and embarrassed, agreed to meet Amelia at a coffee shop near his apartment. When she saw him walk in, Leo on his hip, same worn-out backpack, her heart nearly exploded. She stood up. She walked over, and she said, "I read your note every single day. I framed it. It's on my nightstand." Mark looked down at his shoes. "It was just a napkin," he said. "No," Amelia said. "It was everything." And then she asked him a question that surprised even her. "What do you need, Mark? What do you really need?" Mark thought for a minute. Then he said, "A job. I got laid off last week. The daycare closed. I don't know what I'm going to do." Amelia didn't hesitate. "You're hired." Now you might think she gave him some fancy executive job. But she didn't, because Mark didn't want that. He wasn't looking for a handout. He was looking for a chance. So Amelia created a new position at her company, head of employee well-being, a job that didn't exist before. Mark's job was simple. Walk around the office, talk to people, ask them if they've eaten, ask them if they've slept, remind them that they're human. And every single Friday, Mark brings Leo to the office. And every single Friday, Amelia sits on the floor with him and plays with that one-eyed teddy bear. So what's the point of this story? It's not about a billionaire saving a single dad. It's about a single dad saving a billionaire. Without even trying. Without even knowing it. Mark didn't have money. He didn't have power. He didn't have a corner office or a private jet. What he had was kindness, patience, the ability to see a tired stranger and say, "You matter." And that's the thing that most of us forget. We spend our whole lives chasing the wrong things. More money, more followers, more stuff. But at the end of the day, what really matters? A napkin note, a shared moment, a shoulder to cry on, or in this case, a shoulder to sleep on. Amelia learned that the hard way. She learned that you can have $9 billion and still be broke. Broke in the ways that actually count. Love, connection, rest, peace. Mark had none of the money, but all of the riches. And in the end, he gave her the only thing she really needed. Permission to be human. If this story hit you right in the chest, click the video on your screen right now. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.